So we're on the way to Kilkenny today. We are visiting Pat Fitzgerald in Beotanics at Fitzgerald's Nurseries in Stoneford in Kilkenny. We're going today to find out more about how he grew it, why he grew it, where he grows, and to get a look at the wasabi itself. So we can show people that the wasabi we're using is going to be 100% Irish, and it's absolutely, it's really interesting, and it's really rare, and it's really exciting. And in general, I'm super interested in the whole project that Pat's done. I think it's been an 8-year project. So yeah, we're going there now, and we're 35 kilometers from Kilkenny. So just gonna keep drinking this coffee to keep me going, you know. Hello everyone, my name is Conor Bacon. I'm the owner of Two Savage, and I'm currently developing a wasabi mayonnaise, plant-based. I was really struggling to find 100% wasabi. I was actually finding it impossible. And long story, a friend of a friend who knew someone basically connected me with Pat Fitzgerald here, who is the CEO and founder of Fitzgerald Nurseries and Beotanics, and you specialise in the...
We specialise in rare,
you can say it better.
in rare crops, and we picked on wasabi because it was difficult to do and nobody was doing it.
Yeah.
So basically we've spent since 2015 now breeding for our climate conditions, selecting, learning, visiting Japan with the farmers there, and this is the end result. So we're at the beginning of the end, or the end of the beginning, I guess, and we've now commercialised wasabi locally grown in Ireland, and we're beginning to export both plants and products around the world on wasabi.
Amazing.
We're using organic principles, so we don't use any chemicals.
No GMOs, nothing.
No GMO. GMO would cost quite a few million euros to perform, but no, we don't use any GMOs. It's natural breeding. The breeding came from Shizuoka province in Japan, a village called Utogi, which is the original place where wasabi was grown right back in history. And basically we work with a farmer there. He's after sharing his seeds with us, and we're making selections out of them seeds to suit the Irish climate.
Nice.
So this is after 7 years now. We've got we've got 3 varieties now after 7 years. That's working fairly well.
And how did you source the wasabi from that grower originally? What made you pick that particular
I was
farm?
in Japan in 2010, and we were in Tokyo in a restaurant, and we were in other restaurants, and everywhere we went to sushi type restaurants, and the wasabi was everywhere, and I got curious about the wasabi. Then I was back again in 2015, and coincidentally I got a wasabi variety from Australia. They were starting to grow it in Australia in the 90s, in Tasmania, and I took an interest in it. And then we tried with that variety, but it was an absolute disaster. It kept dying. So
it wasn't for like the Irish
just,
climate
yeah,
or whatever.
It mightn't have been for any climate by the looks of it, but it's not a bad variety, but it didn't really grow well and give the right colour in the paste. You want a really nice green paste, and this had blacky blue bits through it.
Even when I make the mayonnaise with it as well, it transforms the colour of the sauce, so naturally super green.
It's a very stable colour.
Yeah, and even the synthetic stuff that has the green food colouring and the horseradish, it still doesn't change the colour, you know. Even with the food colouring, but this is all natural, and it's fully green.
It's full of chlorophyll, and it's quite stable. So basically you're getting nothing, only natural colouring. It's literally natural.
Yeah, it's
colouring.
very natural.
Yeah, it's the leaf. Yeah. And I was back in Japan in 2018 then, and I went on a tour of wasabi farms, and I found this family right up in the mountains in a village called Utogi, and jeekers, I saw this little plaque in the middle of the village, and I said, what's that? And the guy I have an agent there who works with us on other plants, sweet potato and a few other things, and he said that's the registration for the village for the international heritage site for wasabi. I said, what?
So that's the main.
You never told me. Oh yeah. And I said, oh, okay.
Very
so
humble.
this is where wasabi cultivation began in history, and he says, yeah, that's where it began.
No, was that 900 AD, was it?
Oh no, it was around the 1600s, around the 16th,
Okay.
17th century. And the story goes that the emperor decreed that this was the village where the best wasabi was from, and basically it has the foundation. They started building these little sawa wasabi ponds that you'd see in picture books and everything, and that's where it began. But
Okay,
then
yeah.
it spread to other parts. There's a place called the Izu Peninsula, IZU, and actually the Izu Peninsula is probably getting, or has become, more famous for wasabi within Japan than Utogi. But Utogi is very famous for green tea.
Okay.
So we're doing a little bit of work on green tea as well.
Interesting, yeah.
So the green tea that comes from the village of Utogi, because of the temperature, the climate and everything, is really a unique flavour. You'd know a little bit more
Yeah,
about
I'd like
that
to
than
try
I would.
it,
Yeah, we
Very
can
healthy
actually,
as well,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, oh yeah.
Similar kind of health benefits with wasabi and green tea, would you say, in the same region?
Well,
Does it
the
have
only
any-
common thing they'd have would be the polyphenols. The wasabi would have a few other kicks on green tea. The big kick on wasabi is the allyl isothiocyanate. It's a particular molecule that helps with your blood flow. It helps with dissolving fatty particles in the blood. It's, according to science papers, they're starting to get evidence that it has a gut-brain axis connection where it helps through gut metabolization of other foods, benefits to the brain.
No
so
way.
down in Moore Park in Cork, we're doing some experiments with UCC and Moore Park on gut microbiome impact of
with the wasabi, and that's going on at the moment,
That's going on now, but
that'd be kind of very current research going on
very
with it
current,
as well,
but there's decades of research papers showing tests on animals showing that wasabi has this impact, and the Japanese aren't like the Europeans. The Japanese don't have to know why about everything.
Yeah.
They just need to know it does, and they've been using wasabi for centuries, not just in what you see with the fancy sushi. They use the pickles, they use the petiole of it for pickles, they use the leaf in sauces, in pesto type products, and they use the rhizome then for what you see in sushi bars.
Yeah.
But they also make powders, and they put them in nutraceutical pills and
Okay.
just take
So they
them
use
every
everything.
day.
I suppose
Everything,
it's
yeah.
worth actually noting while we're on that subject for people that don't know what the wasabi consists of. Can you explain like what the rhizome is?
What we'll do is
the petiole and the leaf.
we'll pick a plant. So
Okay.
now, hopefully the first one is the right one.
Yeah.
Just
Conor
to-
want to pick it?
Yeah, just to tell you that I see it already, but wasabi takes 18 months to 2 years to make the rhizome part.
Yeah.
We harvest flowers, we harvest leaf, and we harvest petiole. So I'll show you the 3 edible parts of wasabi.
Okay.
Each of them can be incorporated as a percentage in a food product. The best way of consuming them is through pesto-like products, or through pickle, or through sauces, because in all of those products you have binders that hold the molecule intact. So in a mayonnaise, for instance, the fat in the mayonnaise binds the allyl isothiocyanate molecule and makes it available.
Okay.
In water, it evaporates.
Okay.
So you need an oily substance to hold the molecule.
Hold on to it.
So basically, if we put it in rapeseed oil, if we put it in olive oil, if we put it in any dairy fat or mayonnaise fats, for instance, which contain usually rapeseed oil,
Yeah, like ours. Yeah.
within 20 minutes, so fresh. Once we capture it in there, it binds, and when you eat your sauce or eat your pickle or eat your mayonnaise, it's available in your body. So it carries into your body in fat or in an oil. So I'll show you the plant. So I'm looking here, and there's one here which I hope will give us an idea. Now just bear in mind, these were planted last October, and our system for the beginning that we're using is a pot system, and we have a special substrate in the pot, that we've tested over the last 7 years that the wasabi likes. So when we harvest everything, we wash the pots, we sterilize them, and we reuse them. And the pots last us, they could last us 5-6 years, unless one gets broken or something like that. So we sterilize, recycle the pot, and use it again.
Sustainable process.
Yeah, but the new system we're moving to, we're looking at building a specialized nursery for growing it, and that will just have gravel beds like they do in Japan.
Okay.
So we figured out through this system, we figured out how to grow it in an Irish context. So this plant, and after picking, this plant has three crowns on it. So because it has 3 crowns, none of them are developed yet. So they'll take a little bit more time. So we'll pick one where we can see a rhizome. So basically, here's one here. So we're drip feeding them, so they get their water, very clean well water we're using for this, through these little drips, and they drip into the plant. We have 2 drips per pot, and they basically work away. So now we have the plant. So at this time of year, some of the leaves are turning old because it's actually, believe it or not, grows slower during the summer than it does in the autumn, and even early winter we get better growth. So I'm pulling away some of the old leaves that can't be used. I'll just put them here, and you see here now the nice new clean leaves. So these particular leaves are the leaves that will become the future harvest. So I'm going to take away one of these leaves. So we will be harvesting, the first thing we will be harvesting in November are these leaves. So this is a wasabi leaf. Now, believe it or not, by November these will probably be about 15 to 20 centimeters taller. They're coming out of, this summer was actually a good summer, and if you pan across that side, that's a different variety, and you notice it's much more green than this variety.
So would you say, like, it's been a good summer in regards to the sunlight has been good for these wasabi plants? Because I read that they don't really like direct sunlight too much.
Don't like.
So whatever happened it wasn't that it was necessarily really sunny this summer. It
was the perfect summer. You have these. This shade is helping us. This is about 60% sunlight blocking, and the variety is very important as well. So we're still learning. It took the Japanese hundreds of years. We're trying to learn from them and then try and adapt it to our environment. So I mentioned to you before that we have many varieties. We had 36 varieties that we selected from, that we germinated ourselves, selected from 5,000 plants. So we brought it down to 36. We have another generation coming now again. We have about 75 varieties selected.
How many varieties are there?
We have over 100 and something. These are our selections. There are Japanese varieties as well, but we're using our selections and the breeder farmer in Japan. But that variety over there, you can see clearly it's more green than this one here. So this variety is the best flowering variety we have. So it won't be one variety to fill the full type of material. We have another variety that has a much longer petiole.
Okay.
So there'll be 3 to 5 varieties to make the whole thing good, and they all have to have the flavour. Okay. So we have to have good flavour. But this is the leaf. We've grown it, through summer very effectively. Normally they can even, if you get too much heat, they can actually go dormant in the summer. So now they're starting to regrow again faster as you get towards the autumn. And the cold, once you get into October, November, the cold has impact on the flavour. So the flavour becomes stronger in the colder weather. And this, we will remove the leaf.
Is that because, like, the growing slows down in a way or something? When
it slows down, but it matures. But then we have to get it to a point where we have to harvest, because it decreases again after a particular point. Then. So basically that's the petiole and that's the leaf. So we remove this part, so the 2 parts are separated. We make a powder out of this part, and we pickle this part. So we chop this part into 1 centimetre pieces, and that can be frozen or used immediately in pickles. So
Could you
basically,
turn this into like a commercially viable product? As
yeah,
pickles?
well, in Japan, this is one of the most used parts of the plant. They use this for right across Asian cuisine.
Yeah.
Wasabi pickles are quite famous, and wasabi pickles are used every day, the same as we
Sounds really
use.
tasty, to be honest.
Well, the more important, yeah, it is very tasty, and as important, you get the full bioactive strength of the,
Healthy.
yeah,
Yeah.
of the health impact of the plant here. And the same with this part, you get the health impact fresh leaf. This can be chopped, macerated, put into various, they can even mix it with the pickles.
Did you ferment it like cabbage?
Fermentation is
That would
something
probably be a real healthy way to do it as
definitely
well,
and the Japanese do that as well. We're working
or
on
kimchi,
this.
wasabi or something.
Exactly, yeah. We're working on this in more part for fermentation purposes.
Okay,
They have
yeah.
a lot of experimentation going on fermentation. So those are the the two parts of the plant that you can use first, and you take off a certain
I have a
percentage.
little bite, can I?
You can chew away to your heart's content. So you have a certain percentage of the
Can I
leaf
try some?
is used. I'll do a test with you later on how
Oh, it's
to
good.
eat the leaf. So now,
Oh,
even
it's so good.
it's a little bit premature, but here you see a rhizome, what they call a rhizome, but technically it's not. It's here's a better one. Technically, it's not a rhizome, and remember, we're only halfway through the growing season. But I do take some away. I do take rhizomes off it occasionally for myself, and through the growing season. But it's technically only half. So I'm just taking away some of these old leaves. We don't disturb them during the growing season because wasabi is quite a delicate plant. It just does not like being messed around with. So it doesn't like being disturbed.
Bit like some people.
Exactly. So here we see, I don't know, you're able to get a good shot of that, but here
the
we see the
rhizome, yeah.
rhizome here, and the old leaves are parting from it. So as the old leaves fall away, you
See.
see the rhizome starting to form. So I'm going to cut this piece, and later we'll taste it. But I'll cut this away and show you, bearing in mind it's not really ready yet.
Is that okay, is it?
Yeah. So basically, we take this off. It's a very expensive.
I was gonna say to the camera, like, this is no joke, like, you know, this is like gold right here that we're cutting. It's very expensive.
Yeah, it's very expensive
You wouldn't
stuff.
be doing this every day.
In the market, it's €2,500 a kilo. So let me take this over here.
That's an asset right there.
Yeah.
It's actually more expensive than my car at the moment, you know that? What he has in his hand is more expensive than my car.
So basically, here's a small version of the rhizome. So basically, the leaves don't come away as easily now as they will in November to March, but not bad. And this variety is a variety we have named Midori Utogi, and Midori in Japanese is green. So it's originally from the village of Utogi, where wasabi was first cultivated for the emperor at the time.
Nice.
And the emperor decreed that wasabi would be grown only in Utogi, and that's where it developed. And if you see, as I peel,
It's absolutely beautiful, isn't
Yeah.
it, the rhizome?
as I peel off the leaves, you're seeing now what they call a rhizome, but in actual fact, it's not a rhizome. It's a stem, the same as a Brussels sprout, because it's in the Brussels sprout family.
What's a tuber?
A tuber is this.
Separate,
This
is it?
plant wouldn't have a tuber. Potato is a tuber.
What does that mean, technically?
So a
like?
tuber is the part of the plant that some plants produce, like potato.
Sweet potato.
Sweet potato is actually a root.
Okay.
A lot of people think it's a tuber, but it's actually a root.
There's a lot of false
It's a
information
storage.
out there, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's a storage piece. Well, mostly it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So here is what happens. So when we harvest these, we have to carefully clean off, but not go too deep. Clean off the soil piece, and we're getting down to the business part of the rhizome. So we clean off all these side pieces, if this plant was left alone and left for several years, what would happen is all those little pieces would send out shoots and become side shoots. So what you'd end up with is a big bush type structure of wasabi if it was in an area where it liked growing. So as I said, this one is not really fully ready, but that's not far from what you'd have, only a lot longer. And the Japanese spend a lot of time doing what I'm doing here. If you go to where they prepare them on the farm, they'll have a place with flowing water, and they will be picking away like this very particularly. And this variety is just amazing. You don't get any impurities in the paste, as you'll see later on. So this little piece here will give you an idea. Now some varieties of wasabi, when you cut them first, that's black or green, but
just naturally
this variety, every piece of the rhizome is a lovely green colour.
lime kind of like,
yeah, very lime green, and really pasty. The breeder himself has tested this one back in Japan. We sent them back plants to Japan just to be sure, and he was very pleased with this variety. And basically we're going to cultivate it, and this is the end result. We will have taken some leaf and flower off already, but a chef can use this part for this, for meat, fish, as a dip with soy sauce or whatever, or pure on its own. And then all this part can be used, and this part can be used. So the whole piece is usable. So basically for processing, however, we will remove this part. That'll go for making a powder, because it's a seasonal product, so we have a demand for a freeze-dried powder.
You should probably add in there that the wasabi mayonnaise we make is made with the wasabi powder that Pat makes.
So we make a fresh powder here. We have all the wherewithal ourselves.
And would when you make the powder, would that just be 100% wasabi?
100% wasabi. We don't use anything through it. But there's nothing wrong with using horseradish. The Japanese sometimes, for preservation purposes, use 50% horseradish, 50% wasabi powder, because 100% would be hugely expensive, and horseradish is much cheaper. But that amount of wasabi, 50% in your is quite high. In your little tubes that you buy in the supermarket, sometimes there's no wasabi in them, and other times it's 0.5 or maybe 1% wasabi. Whereas,
and that was the issue I was having, is that I couldn't find a wasabi powder that had. It's not even necessarily that I needed a 100% wasabi. It's just all of them had E numbers for the food colouring and everything. It was very hard to find.
And that was the challenge that we have here. Of course, we have to try and produce the wasabi as cost effectively as possible, so that we can give people the benefit of that 100% gig.
And it's grown in, where are we now? Kilkenny.
So
like,
Kilkenny.
We're talking a lot of Japanese stuff.
So we're
literally in Kilkenny right now.
We have 3 houses like this at different stages, and now we're considering, depending on how successful people adapt to wasabi, it should be in the diet. We hope in the future we might be able to sell it with the tops like celery. We hope to be getting that market. For now, we're taking a big gamble. It's after costing us a huge amount of money to get to where we are. We're taking a bit of a gamble, but we're kind of convinced that the nutritional health benefits, the texture, the flavour, it's all going to contribute to a demand. So far the demand is just beginning, so we have to be careful.
I suppose Irish people do like wasabi, and they do appreciate like Japanese cuisine and stuff,
Hopefully, and even without Japanese cuisine, I think we can bring wasabi into our own nutritional culture, like chopped through mixed salads. So if you have about 25 to 30 grams of wasabi a day, that's probably enough for your nutritional purposes. Because it's not really typical nutrition you're after. It's the actual antioxidants and secondary metabolites that help your gut.
That are unique to wasabi.
They're unique to wasabi.
That's very important.
There's many science papers showing that these are unique to wasabi. And all we're trying to do is get this into the diet. So if you can imagine maybe a small percentage of wasabi in a chopped leaf salad, or pickles for your burger or dressing made from wasabi. You're getting it into you. And all you need to do is get about 25 to 30 grams on a daily basis, and
that was a big difference.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's the impact. It won't have the same impact on everybody, but some people will benefit more than others. But the Japanese are living proof that these
and it'd be
herbs
amazing
work.
to see that on the shelf. Let's say in the future, if it's on the shelf, you see wasabi, and to look at it and say that's an Irish product.
Yeah, we'd be really excited to see it in Two Savage sauce, because then we know we're getting it into the body, we're getting it into people, and we know that the stuff in the Two Savage products is all plant-based, not any artificial additives.
No added sugar, nothing like that.
No added sugar, so we know that this is not being messed about with. It's getting in there. And a dollop of the sauce means a dollop of the wasabi, and it's real wasabi.
It's a dollop of the history and the work that's gone into the products as well.
We're happy when we're getting it into people. So the younger people start on it, the longer term, the more benefit it has in gut health.
Start somewhere, you know.
That's right. I'll just leave this inside.
I'll
explain about the grater, because the grater design...
That's the shark? No, it's not shark, is it?
No, they're just boards. The grater design is based on... the skin of a shark. So I'll explain a little bit about that.
They normally, in Japan, they use shark fin to grate up the wasabi. I'm not sure what the details of that are, but
well, historically that's what was used in Japan, but now with efforts in conservation and obviously animal rights, that's frowned upon, and basically we have some engineering companies came up with a design to actually, and we even saved this, they came up with a design to mimic the shark skin. We even save this, so when we're preparing the wasabi, we don't throw this away. This goes for a different job, not for food, but we're looking at taking extracts out of this for other purposes. In Japan, there's
very sustainable.
Yeah, in Japan, there's a product being produced. It's and we're going to work on that concept. It's actually an alarm system for the blind and deaf. It's a fire alarm for the blind and deaf, and they use the extract of wasabi and they encapsulate it into a fog. And if there's a fire in the bedrooms, they have these alarms, and it fires out a gas of wasabi over the bed.
That's crazy. I actually read about that. I read not that particular story. Just when you said it, that wasabi, because it's like smelling salts, it can actually wake up deaf people.
Yes. That's they're
using
using it.
Like an alarm.
So the alarm, when it goes off, it gives a fog of wasabi vapor, and because wasabi is not like pepper, wasabi doesn't damage your nasal or your taste immediately within a couple of seconds after the hit. After the hit of wasabi, you're back to normal again. It doesn't have that impact. So you guys can be proof of how pungent it is. So this is the wasabi grater, and my chairs are wasabi green.
There you go. I wore green today as well.
And you wore green.
That was on purpose.
I better put on a green jacket. So basically we've cleaned our wasabi. Normally the true Japanese connoisseur would actually cut off the top and start from this side, because it's most tender from this side. But this variety is so good, it's actually just as good about from here up as it is at the top.
It's almost like when you have a celery, it's
more tender,
it gets more raw.
So we'll keep the whole plant intact. So the trick in grating it is, this is a replacement for the old style shark fin. So I bought this in a factory, it's near Nagano, and he just has one little factory, and all he makes are wasabi graters, and they use them for ginger, of course, and turmeric as well. And vegetables. They grate carrots.
You only get these in Japan?
Yeah, we're importing these now, and basically they grate on these carrots, everything, so they can make a little vegetable paste. But the unique arrangement of the metal pieces, so if you notice here, they're in certain shapes, and that's actually the copy of the way a shark skin is arranged. The shark skin, when it's dry, it has these bristles. If you pull back against it, they're pretty they're pretty abrasive. And what the manufacturer of this blade has done is he's arranged those barbs just in the right direction, and this is very heavy samurai sword type metal.
I was going to say it's very heavy.
It's so basically when you're grating the wasabi, you begin in a circular motion. So you basically start. So you see already the paste starting to develop. So it needs to be somewhere between dry and pasty. If it's too pasty, the texture doesn't feel good. So you notice how clean that is. It's really a clean paste coming from this variety. Not every variety does that. So that's the paste, and then we just simply turn it like that.
So nice.
And the yield of paste is really good. So that's...
Wasn't expecting all that to come off there.
Yeah, that's just a small part of it. It's fluffing it up. Now what have we done? We've, like when you're chewing, we've chewed the rhizome. So that gives a biological pressure now on the material. And the material is now starting to release the isothiocyanate as we speak. How does that happen? It's a natural reaction to the plant damage to protect itself. So basically, if an animal comes along and starts chewing the leaf, the minute it starts chewing the leaf, it gets this boom, and the animal usually stops. So you don't
not having any of that.
They don't want that. It's too dangerous for me.
So in a way, it kind of protects.
It's a self-protectant. Yeah. It's also for the human. This particular secondary metabolite, they're known in science, is a secondary metabolite, as I said earlier, called allyl isothiocyanate. And it's also existing in a different molecular form in horseradish. Horseradish and wasabi are very different, very similar nutritionally, but there's one molecule difference in the wasabi, and that's allyl isothiocyanate. There's many different types of isothiocyanates, and this allyl isothiocyanate plus a number of other things in polyphenol levels and other nutritional aspects of wasabi, but the big one that differs with every other brassica is this allyl isothiocyanate.
And what would be the specifics of that difference?
It's seemingly got it's 6-MITC, I think the scientists call it, and it's a molecule that seems, according to scientific research, that seems to have a unique interaction with the human gut brain.
And that's
this is the sauce in the product, or whatever you want to call it, the USP of wasabi. And the Japanese, as I've said, have adopted wasabi back from medieval times.
You said they don't necessarily have to know how, but they just know that.
Yeah, they don't get into why like Europe dissects things to death, and the Japanese say we know it's good for us. Yeah. And the reason wasabi began to be used in the first place was it kills salmonella and E. coli.
So it's antimicrobial.
Antimicrobial. They use it on fish. That's why you use when you get sushi, you actually use wasabi. The tradition can, but unfortunately nowadays the wasabi that you're using wouldn't have the same protective element as the wasabi you're looking at here.
The tradition of using this was antimicrobial. You're using raw fish. It's
raw fish. You dip it each time you eat a piece of raw fish. You dip it in the mixture of soy sauce and wasabi. You often see the motion that they do. They flip it like that, and then they eat it. And then once they start eating it, these anti-E. coli, anti-salmonella components or antimicrobials within the wasabi are reacting with your saliva and everything, and they give that impact.
Okay.
So I grated that about maybe 2 minutes ago. Normally what they say is you leave it between after about 5 minutes, because the compounds are now having their little song and dance with each other in there. So you're getting
It's starting to smell it now as well.
yeah, you're starting to, the gas is coming to you now, that's the smell. So if you were in a room and you were grating a lot of this, you would have to have a gas mask on. Yeah, you would have to have goggles and a gas mask, because this is pretty potent stuff when you start grating. We began in the beginning, and I had to clear out of the room about 3-4 years ago when we grew our first.
Strong now.
I started grating it in a room and used a blitzer on it. I opened up the blitzer and it hit me in the eyes and burned my eyes, not burned, but gave me a really mustard gas.
Would have woken you up, like.
And mustard gas was used during World War II as a tool. What the mustard gas does is it blinds you, but doesn't blind you. You just have to close your eyes, it becomes
like
so,
a flash grenade or something.
and then it dissipates. Whereas if you use chili or some of the other products of that, you have big trouble. So now that's probably enough for you to take a little piece to test.
Would you recommend I take a little piece?
That's probably a little bit of
Is that too much, or is that
a weeny piece? It'd go a little bit more. Now you're there. Yeah. So what you got to do now is when you taste it, just keep your mouth shut for a few seconds and see.
Oh, you hard to keep your mouth shut.
I'd say so.
Yeah, it's delicious, and it definitely hit my nose. So
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah. You'll find sometimes your nose starts running next. So if you have sinus or something.
I actually did. Yeah, well, I mean, I have some sinus problems, but it's much more fragrant than the synthetic stuff. It's
Softer.
It's much softer, and it has a lot more clarity in the flavour. Like, it's not. I don't know, it's just very natural. You can actually taste how natural it is, and it's very soft in a way as well, you know. But the nasally thing does hit you, but it's not too.
It's not intense. Lasting a long time.
And I noticed that in the wasabi mayonnaise that I'm making as well. I don't think it's going to knock people out. It's not too offensive, you know.
No, people have the wrong perception of wasabi. Therefore, there's a resistance against wasabi because they're used to eating mustard.
Yeah.
That's what you're getting in wasabi mostly.
So they're from the same family as the brassicaceae family.
Except this one, mustard has more allergen, and there's more people with allergies to mustard than wasabi. So it's a very different.
You have to tell people that there's an allergen in it when it's mustard.
Yeah, when it's mustard. Yeah. So the pure thing, unfortunately, is very expensive. But as you see, it's a natural pasted product.
There's also a vegetable taste off it.
Yeah.
Which you don't get off the other wasabi. It actually can taste
it.
Yeah,
you're not tasting it at the optimum time of the year. When you come to November, the taste note changes on it, and then when you get into February, it's at its peak. Because when it begins to flower, most of the studies have shown that that's when it's at its peak pungency. And that's when we take it and freeze dry it. So
you say it shows its flower.
Yeah, it flowers in February, January, February.
Flowers, can you do anything with the flowers?
Yeah, we sell the flowers. Yeah, the flowers are a delicacy in Japan. They use them in. They have special traditional dishes for flower. Normally, what they do with them is they ferment them, or they pickle them.
Like wild garlic, you pickle the wildflowers.
Exactly, yeah. So there's a lot of culture of using young wasabi flowers in Japan, and then the older wasabi flowers are a little bit more fibery but still quite succulent, and they'll chop them into little centimetre pieces, and they'll either freeze them for use later in making fresh pickles, or they'll make pickles out of them immediately fresh.
And I actually just have a question there, just while I think about it. I've never actually been to Japan, so when you're in Japan, is it still very a delicacy and quite rare to have wasabi, or is it very popular in Japan because
It's
for
popular
food?
but very expensive, so because of the
it doesn't
expense,
change, the price is still.
the price is
Yeah.
very expensive. It would be a little
It's
bit.
not like going buying spinach in the shop.
Oh
Okay.
no. Most of the sales of wasabi is used for condiment and for pickles. So basically, you're finding it mostly in processed, but gentle processed products. No heat. You cannot cook wasabi. If you
Okay.
cook wasabi, you're better off going out to the field and getting a big bunch of grass and eating that, because the nutritional value is gone when
Okay.
you cook it. So basically, the wasabi is
Maybe eaten raw.
sauces, various different types of condiments, pickles, sauces, that type of thing.
Okay.
Dairy products, they make a wasabi cheese, and there's a logic to that as well,
Okay.
because wasabi compounds are known to help against fat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if you're absorbing a lot of fat through dairy or through meat, and you have a small percentage of wasabi running in your diet all the time, you have an extra nutritional intervention on helping you with your food nutritional balance. We have to be careful that, we're not doctors or medicine men. We're basically horticulturists, and we do look into nutrition. In Beotanics, we have a special section which researches the nutrition of every crop that we do, and we've spent 7 years in uncovering science papers on this, and every year there are new science papers saying the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, did me breakfast. They're making files.
Oh, I tested it that time. It's getting stronger.
Yeah, with time, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's after getting stronger now. As a bag-in-box type syrup, or not syrup, puree, that someone has their big tank of sauce mix already there. They catch it, glug it into it, and then it's even the flavours are held even more.
That could work for me as
Yeah.
well.
That's what we're targeting. We should be in a position by spring to have a prototype of that product.
Okay, yeah. I suppose it's good for people to know as well that, this is like the first product of hopefully like more as well, and things
Yeah.
could change, and
Like,
as the
yeah.
product is, there's such a process that goes into it, I think we'll make it work with whatever works as time goes on.
Yeah, like even in Europe, this is just not a thing.
Yeah.
There's only a handful of people in
This
Europe
is innovation.
trying
This
this. Yeah.
is very innovative.
Yeah, we took the approach, and a lot of those people that are trying it in Europe are contacting us now. We took the approach with wasabi. First, we want to get the varieties right, then we want to get the agronomy right, and then we want to get the processing. So until we got the three of them together, we didn't want to publicise too much. So last year was the beginning of the end of that process. So we're looking at processing, we're looking at agronomy, and we're looking at the breeding of the right varieties. Because we want the variety that looks like that.
Yeah.
If you look at pictures online of people in America or in Europe trying wasabi, just observe that the colour is not really very green in a lot of them. For us, we're an export business.
Yeah.
We're an export business. We're not as good as the Dutch at what the Dutch do. So I go back to many, many years ago. I saw this interview with a fairly famous hotelier and sports guy, and he was asked, he said, Kilkenny, it's a little bit unfair, they only play hurling, and they don't play football. And he said, well, it's a small population, limited resources, limited finances. And he said, anyway, have you heard of have you heard of the tennis player Nick Faldo? Nick Faldo plays golf. Exactly, you don't see him going out playing tennis. So for us, when we go out into the market, if we try and copy things that other companies are doing, we're on the back foot. But if we come out with our own unique, like we did with Sweet Potato, we're the first company in Europe to agronomize north of Spain and France. Sweet potato, now they're growing our varieties in Germany, Austria, Finland even is growing sweet potato at small scale. So we pick on a crop that's unique, and then we try and get good at it, and then we come with surprise to the market.
Amazing. So Pat, thanks very much for your time
You're welcome,
and all
Conor.
the amazing
Yeah.
information.
You're welcome,
And
boy.
thanks a lot
Yeah.
for the wasabi
Yeah.
and the vegan shark fin, as
The
we'll call
vegan
it. Really appreciate it, right?
Yeah,
Thanks
and
very much.
best of luck with the sauce making. I hope the
100%.
wasabi is satisfactory for you.
Yeah, I'll definitely need it.
Okay.
Cheers.